Jonah Ogburn, Maddie May, Nick Stevens, and Jesus Troy. This is William Battie and moral treatment. Mental illness has long been a malady that society cannot control. The way in which humans address it is controllable, and sadly, we've not always addressed it in a proper way. There have been times when humans have treated people with mental illness like animals. But times have changed, and thanks to William Battie, we've gotten to where we are today. William Battie's 18th century work and writings acted as a turning point in the field of treating the mentally ill due to his individual beliefs that mental illness is treatable and that it came in a variety.
It reeks.
Well, surely they don't bathe it, at least not for the past fortnight.
Rather a miserable creature, wouldn't you say?
Pathetic, really. Poorly clothed, chained, bruised, and scarred.
Hey!
Hey! Move! Do something! I came to be entertained!
Let's move on. There are dozens of freaks here. I'm sure we can find someone to give us a show.
Mentally ill individuals have long been treated immorally. In the Dark Ages, mental illness was mistaken for possession of the demons. The only way to expel the demon from the body was considered to burn them. Later, they'd be tried as witches and on occasion hanged. Once asylums started to open, they weren't effective. Before the 1800s, they permitted public viewing of their patients. There were virtually no laws in place that regulated health and treatment standards in asylums. In 1765, a law passed that stated that the administrators had to inspect their asylums, but only 3 times a week. And 20 years later, a law was passed that required patients to be bathed, and still only 3 times a week. There were virtually no laws in place. These places were crowded. Hygiene was unheard of. Patients wore no shoes. They were fed a feeble diet that lacked nutrition. They were cramped into small cells, chained, and they had no lighting or ventilation. Worst of all, mental illness, the disease, was considered to be incurable. Their treatment was believed to lessen the symptoms and not cure the disease. Administrators would give them bleedings, vomits, purges, and erines to sap the energy and spirit out of their patients to make them appear calm. They were also subject to mechanical restraint. They'd be tied and chained into their cells for days. And in some rare cases, the overseers would even sexually or physically abuse the patients.
By the time the scientific revolution began, people's ideas began to change on how to treat those affected with mental illness. People also began to question brutality. Most importantly, William Battie, the most prominent figure in the treatment of those with mental illness. William Battie was born in England in 1704. He attended King's College of Cambridge, where he achieved his doctorate in medicine. After he became a doctor, he was an administrator at the Bethlehem Asylum. Here he met John Monroe, who was the superintendent of a church-run asylum called Bethlehem. Bethlehem later earned the nickname Bedlam due to its excessive, brutal treatment.
William, I don't understand. You can't just open your own asylum. That's preposterous. Has Bethlehem wronged you in some way that has escaped my notice?
It is the hospital's problem, John, but it's nothing that the staff has any control over. The problem lies closer to the top.
If you want me to talk to the board, I can do that. They'll listen to me. We don't want to lose you, John. We need you.
It's not the board's problem, John. It's you.
Look, I don't know what you're trying to
I'm not insinuating anything. You've showed a complete disregard for the safety of your patients and for the patients in your care. So I suppose if I was insinuating something, it would be that I will do everything in my power to make sure your methods of treatment are eradicated.
You've insulted me. You've insulted me in my own workplace and my own methods. Get out!
The winds of change are coming, John, and you better get yourself and this hospital prepared for when that change comes knocking at your door.
Aha! Let me take a look. Oh yes, this patient is in fact a lunatic.
Tell them, miss, my name is Dr. William Battie, and this is my young assistant. Let me take a look at you. It appears she has a case of consequential madness. This is good news because it means you can be cured. It appears you suffered a concussion to the head, and that's what's causing you to see these delusions. Your father tells me you fell off a horse 6 months ago, and soon after you began to see these delusions.
Now, your disease will never go away, but here at Bethlehem we'll do our best to calm its symptoms. We'll subject you to seasonal bleedings, vomits, and purges.
I cannot say you have an easy road to recovery from here on out, but I think St. Luke's can help you by giving you peaceful seclusion from anything that might set off your delusions. If you're willing to take part in our sensory therapy sessions, I'm sure it would go a long way towards your recovery. Cracks or warm oil fomentations will help calm your mind. I can assure you we'll have a clean and comfortable stay for you here at St. Luke's Hospital.
Well, that's all. The attendant will bring you a meal once a day.
Well, I will personally make sure you're taken care of, and me and my assistants will check upon you regularly. I will make sure to get you back into your normal circumstances as soon as possible.
William Battie was the first doctor to believe that mental illness came in a variety and was truly curable. At St. Luke's, he diagnosed and treated his patients according to their disease. Later in life, he would become the president of the College of Physicians, further crediting his name and voice in the sciences. Battie wrote the Treatise of Madness on his work with mental illness. In this book, he criticized the teachings and practices of past doctors and suggested a new system of diagnosis and new treatments. His book discussed much of what was wrong with brutality and acted as a fuel to the turning point because it expressed his many opinions on how to better treatment.
Hello, young man. Make sure you listen carefully and take notes because I will be speaking passionately. Man has so long been ignorant about mental illness. He has begun to mistake symptoms that frequently accompany madness as necessary to madness itself. This is wrong. We need to make sure that others understand that madness is treatable. It comes in many different varieties and must be treated accordingly. We may collect that madness, with respect to its causes, is distinguishable into two species. The first, solely owing to an internal disorder of the nervous substance. The second is likewise owing to the same nervous substance, being indeed like the matter disordered, but disordered ab extra, and therefore is to be chiefly attributed to some remote or accidental cause. The first species, until a better name can be found, will be called original, and the second will be called consequential madness. If people would only understand that gluttony, idleness, and alcohol have negative impacts on the cranium, perhaps our society would blossom. Maybe if brutality weren't used in such extravagance in asylums, more could be cured. The only way to cure madness is by 1, in removing or correction of its causes, 2, in removing or correcting its symptoms, and 3, in preventing, removing, or correction of its ill effects. The advantages of this system is that the symptoms of the patient can be removed safely so the disease itself can be focused on. We as psychiatrists must study the history of our patients and how they react to their given environments.
Battie published his treatise in 1758. By the turn of the 19th century, as other physicians began to advocate for moral management, when Battie's system later became known. In England, William Tuke opened the Quaker Asylum, which he called the Retreat. Also, a Frenchman, Philippe Pinel, expanded on Battie's method of categorization. In the 1800s, Philippe Pinel took William Battie's system of categorization and broke it into 4 main parts: mania, melancholia, dementia, and yes, idiotism. Also in the late 1700s, William Tuke stressed Battie's idea of seclusion, but he also suggested that patients should be occupied in a peaceful practice. Notably, people were also adopting these ideas in North America. Nearly 100 years after Battie, Dorothea Dix advocated for moral management right here in Massachusetts. All of these people were advocates for moral management and helped popularize Battie's ideas with their success.
By the 1840s, the government began to take a part in eliminating brutality.
This is terrible.
Why?
We have to start helping these people. We have to keep them clean and unshamed.
But nothing about this is wrong.
Can't you see what's happening here? We're now the minority. We have to help these vermin.
But with moral management, the patients will be taken out of all areas that will grind on the nerves and stir up the delusions. They'll recover faster.
Recover? The state only gives us so much, yet demands that we accept everyone. The more people, the more crowded. Soon enough, we'll have a poorly funded trash bowl. Just look at the U.S. They have all this moral management, yet all this poverty and filth. Soon enough, we'll become a mirror of them.
Look, these patients need help, and who are we to turn them away?
We should not turn them away.
Today we are able to treat individuals with mental illness with more modern, effective methods because of William Battie's ideas and writings. Moral management is still used in hospitals all over the world, just like it was by William Battie in St. Luke's all those years ago.
Today we have the DSM-IV, the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Illness, an extensive list of all the known mental illnesses and their known symptoms. We can now affirm Battie's belief that alcoholism is indeed an illness and that certain illnesses start from birth. Genetics have shown that mental illness is essentially a disease from the tissues.
Today, moral management has brought things like fresh air, healthy diet, and exercise to patients in psychiatric hospitals all over the world. In the United States, the prison system would be in shambles if it weren't for Dorothea Dix and others who epitomized Battie's ideas. Battie's 2-part classification system was a future reference for all classification systems, including Pinel's four-part system.
William Battie led the turning point in treating mentally ill individuals humanely. He changed the way everybody viewed mentally ill people, both medically and socially. William Battie transformed the asylum into a respectable place of medicine. And although we have a long way to go, William Battie did usher in a whole new era, an era in which disease was better understood, treatment was better suited to the disease, and society better appreciated the value of a human life.